Halloween, the season of festivities, bizarre costumes, and spooky pranks. But behind the masks and the glow of jack-o'-lanterns, real horror stories sometimes lurk. In this video, we'll explore 5 eerie and tragic murders where real bodies were mistaken for Halloween decorations. From Ohio to California, these chilling cases not only send shivers down our spines but also expose the dark side of indifference and apathy. Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear isn't fictional horror, it's the haunting truth of real events. Story number 1. Robert Owens, 2023. Owens's body was left outside the abandoned house and mistaken for a prop for days. On a chilly October morning in 2023, an abandoned house in a remote neighborhood of a small town in North Carolina became the center of a strange mystery. Day after day, passersby noticed something unusual lying in the front yard: a body. Face down on the ground, arms spread out, pale skin exposed, and lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. But no one paid it any mind. They believed it was just another Halloween prop, part of the eerie decorations so common during this time of year. Day after day, the body remained there, blending into the scenery. Yellow leaves fell from the trees, settling over the still figure. Children passing by curiously kicked stones at what they assumed was a mannequin. Adults noticed it too, but shrugged it off. During Halloween season, even the most disturbing sights could be dismissed as harmless fun. By the 4th morning, however, a neighbor decided to take a closer look. Something felt off. That decoration smells weird, he thought, wrinkling his nose at the faint odor of decay wafting through the crisp autumn air. He moved closer, and as soon as he touched the body, a wave of horror washed over him. "This isn't a prop, this is real," he screamed and called the police, his voice trembling with panic. When officers arrived, they confirmed the unthinkable. The lifeless figure was not a Halloween decoration, but the decomposing body of Robert Owens, a local man who had gone missing days earlier. He had been left exposed, discarded like an unwanted object, lying unnoticed among the autumn leaves. Robert wasn't a decoration, he was a person, forgotten and ignored by those around him, even in death. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered that Robert Owens's death was shrouded in mystery. Some locals reported seeing Robert wandering near the abandoned house a few days before his body was found. His expression dazed and distant, yet there were no obvious signs of foul play, no clear indication of violence. The cause of Robert's death remained unknown. Had he been murdered, or had he fallen and been left to die alone, unnoticed by the world? What was certain was that for days, his lifeless body had been mistaken for a decoration. A grim reminder of how easily people turn a blind eye to what seems strange but not serious. In the festive atmosphere of Halloween, the macabre scene had become just another overlooked part of the holiday spirit, until the truth was discovered too late. Soon, unsettling rumors began to spread through the town. Some claimed that Robert Owens's spirit could not rest, his death treated with such casual indifference. Those passing by the abandoned house at night reported hearing whispers carried on the wind. "Why didn't anyone help me?" Others swore they had seen the figure of a man lying on the ground, motionless, exactly as Robert had been found. At times, the figure's arm would twitch, as if struggling to crawl to safety. But when anyone approached, it would vanish, leaving only a chilling cold in the air and a heavy weight on their chest, as if the guilt of the town's indifference was pressing down on them. The townspeople began to believe that Robert's abandoned body was not just a tragic mistake, but a grim warning to all. During the Halloween season, when fear and fantasy blur the lines between reality and illusion, they reminded one another, not everything you see is a joke. A still figure on the ground might not be a mannequin, and that whisper in the wind could be the desperate plea of a soul still trapped in the limbo between life and death. If you happen to walk past the abandoned house on a dark night and spot a figure lying face down in the yard, keep walking, don't stop, don't look too closely, because if you do, the ghostly figure of Robert Owens might lift his head and meet your gaze, his hollow eyes silently asking, "Why didn't anyone notice me?" Since then, no one dares venture near the abandoned house. The autumn leaves continue to fall, blanketing the patch of earth where Robert Owens lay, and the faint whispers in the wind still echo through the night, reminding the townspeople that not all tragedies are born from malice. Some are the product of cold, unfeeling indifference. Story number 2. Patricia Ward, 2014, in New York. Ward was murdered by her son and her body placed on the street was mistaken for a decoration. On the night of October 28, 2014, the town of Farmingdale, New York, was wrapped in the chilly air of late autumn. The streets were decorated for the fast-approaching Halloween, with dried leaves scattering across the pavement, and yards adorned with scarecrows, pumpkins, and fake cobwebs. But no one in the neighborhood could have predicted that an unthinkable tragedy would soon turn a peaceful night into a haunting nightmare. In a small apartment near Farmingdale State College, 66-year-old Patricia Ward was preparing dinner for herself and her son. Derek Ward, 35, Patricia, a beloved and respected professor, carried the weight of a harsh reality in her personal life. Derek suffered from severe mental illness, and she had spent years caring for him. Despite her love and devotion, the darkness in Derek's mind had grown uncontrollable, and as Halloween approached, it reached a breaking point. In a sudden fit of psychosis, Derek attacked his mother with a knife, and the small apartment became the scene of an unimaginable horror. Patricia was unable to defend herself against the violent outburst of the son she had nurtured for decades. In his deranged state, Derek not only stabbed his mother to death but went on to decapitate her with a large knife. The brutality of the act unfolded in complete silence, shattering the bond of love between mother and son. After killing Patricia, Derek made a chilling decision. He dragged his mother's lifeless body out onto the street. As if possessed by something darker than madness, he placed her severed head on the front steps of their building, while the headless body was discarded in the middle of the road. In Derek's twisted, broken mind, this wasn't just murder, it was a macabre ritual. A grotesque display for the world to see. Patricia's headless body lay motionless in the street, her blood staining the cold asphalt. At first, passersby thought it was nothing more than an elaborate Halloween prop, something placed there for dramatic effect. No one approached the body. They believed it was part of the seasonal decor. A few even stopped to take pictures and laugh, unaware that they were standing before a real human tragedy. It wasn't until nearly half an hour later that a bus driver realized something was wrong. He stopped, looked closer, and the horrifying truth hit him. This was no decoration. The police were called immediately. They discovered Patricia's head resting on the front steps, just a few feet from where her body lay. Meanwhile, Derek had wandered to a nearby railroad track, where he took his own life, ending his violent rampage. News of Patricia Ward's gruesome death and her son's horrific actions spread quickly, shocking the community to its core. Those who had passed by her body in the street were haunted by the revelation that they had mistaken a real tragedy for a Halloween prank. The weight of guilt and horror lingered over the town, a grim reminder that sometimes the line between reality and fantasy is far thinner than we'd like to believe. In the aftermath, eerie rumors began to swirl around the neighborhood where Patricia was killed. Some residents claimed that the area felt colder, darker, during the Halloween season. Those living near Patricia's apartment said they sometimes heard the sound of heavy footsteps at night, as if someone were dragging something along the street. A few even swore they had seen the shadow of a headless woman wandering beneath the dim streetlights, her arms outstretched, as if searching for help that never came. Locals warned that if you walk through the neighborhood on the nights leading up to Halloween, don't stop if you see something strange lying in the road, because if you get too close, that figure might turn toward you, even without a head, and you might hear a faint voice whisper in the wind, "Why didn't anyone help me?" Patricia Ward's story is more than just a gruesome tale of mental illness and tragedy. It is a chilling reminder of the indifference and apathy that sometimes blinds us to real horror. In a season filled with tricks and scares, true nightmares can still lurk in the shadows, overlooked and ignored, just like Patricia's lifeless body, mistaken for a Halloween prop that was never meant to be a joke. Story number 3. Frederica, Delaware, 2005. The body of a suicidal woman hanging from a tree was not reported because it was thought to be a Halloween prop. On the morning of October 26, 2005, the small town of Frederica, Delaware, awoke to the crisp chill of autumn air. Streets were lined with pumpkins, fake spiderwebs, and eerie scarecrows as Halloween approached. Leaves danced along the sidewalks with every gust of wind, setting the perfect stage for the season's festivities. But along a quiet road leading into town, something unsettling appeared, a figure hanging high from a tree branch, swaying gently in the breeze. Passersby noticed the figure, but no one raised an alarm. Most believed it was simply a Halloween decoration meant to add to the spooky atmosphere. The lifeless figure, suspended by a rope with its head slumped forward and hair blowing softly in the wind, seemed perfectly suited for the season's macabre humor. People smiled as they passed, thinking it was just another harmless prop. No one stopped to take a closer look. For hours, the body remained in plain sight, as pedestrians, drivers, and even neighbors casually went about their day. Some recalled seeing the decoration early that morning, but none suspected anything out of the ordinary. Children on their way to school passed by, giggling and pointing at what they believed was part of the neighborhood's Halloween festivities. It wasn't until later in the afternoon that a worker from a nearby business felt uneasy about the decoration. As he approached to get a closer look, a faint smell began to creep through the crisp autumn air, a scent that didn't belong. The man's stomach churned with dread as he realized the truth. It wasn't a decoration. It was a real body. The victim was a local woman with a history of depression. In the dark of night, she had taken her own life by hanging herself from the tree. Tragically, her final act had gone unnoticed by a community too caught up in the festive spirit to see the truth. What many mistook for a harmless Halloween prank was, in reality, the silent plea of a life lost to despair. When police arrived and sealed off the scene, the weight of guilt and horror settled over the town like a heavy fog. Those who had seen the body earlier in the day were haunted by their inaction. How could they have been so blind? How could they have walked past, laughed, and done nothing? The chilling realization echoed in their minds. If someone had noticed sooner, could she have been saved? Since that tragic day, the story of the woman in the tree has haunted the town of Frederica. Locals whisper that every Halloween, her restless spirit returns to the tree where she spent her final moments. Those who pass by at night claim to see a shadowy figure swaying from the branches, barely visible in the dim street lights. Some say they've heard soft, sorrowful sighs carried on the wind, or the creaking sound of rope rubbing against wood, like a soul still trapped between this world and the next. The boldest among them warn that if you stare too long at the figure in the tree, it will slowly turn its head toward you, and though it has no life left in its eyes, those empty sockets will lock onto yours, silently asking, "Why didn't anyone help me?" Those who hear the whisper never forget the bone-chilling cold that follows, as if an unseen hand has reached out and grazed the back of their neck. The story of the hanging woman is not just a ghost tale, it's a grim reminder of the dangers of indifference. In Frederica, Halloween is no longer just a celebration of tricks and treats. It is a time of reflection, a warning that not everything frightening comes in the form of costumes and props. If you find yourself walking along that road on Halloween night, beware of what you see swaying in the trees. Not every ghost is a fabrication of the holiday. And if you see a figure hanging from the branches, don't stop, for if you listen closely, you may hear her final breath, a whispered plea that no one answered. And once you hear it, you may never escape the weight of her question. Why didn't anyone help? Story number 4. Elmer McCurdy. This criminal's body wandered through many fairs, and was eventually mistaken for a model in a haunted house in California. On a cold December day in 1976, a television crew prepared to film at a haunted house attraction inside the Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California. The scene called for eerie shots inside the dark space, filled with creepy props and mannequins meant to scare visitors. While moving one of the ghastly figures hanging from the ceiling, a crew member accidentally knocked off an arm. What fell to the ground wasn't plastic or wood. As he had expected, it was bone. Real human bone. A shiver ran down the spines of everyone present. What they had thought was just a broken prop turned out to be something far more sinister, a real human corpse, hidden in plain sight for decades as part of the traveling carnival and haunted house attractions. The discovery set off a police investigation that uncovered the bizarre and tragic tale of Elmer McCurdy, an outlaw who had long since passed but had never found peace. Elmer McCurdy was born in 1880 and led a life of petty crime, becoming infamous not for his success but for his failures. In 1911, after a botched train robbery, McCurdy was gunned down by law enforcement in Oklahoma. His body was sent to a local mortuary, but no one ever came to claim it. The mortician, unwilling to bury the body without payment, embalmed McCurdy using arsenic and placed him on display. He dressed McCurdy's corpse in street clothes, stood him up with a rifle in hand, and charged visitors to see the bandit who wouldn't give up. Years later, two men posing as McCurdy's relatives claimed his body. However, they weren't grieving family members, they were carnival owners. They brought McCurdy's corpse on tour, using it as a macabre exhibit at traveling fairs. His body became a roadside attraction, displayed as a curiosity, shuffled from one carnival to another, and advertised under various names like the Mummified Bandit and the Outlaw Who Couldn't Be Caught. For decades, McCurdy's mummified remains were exploited as entertainment, treated as nothing more than a lifeless prop, long forgotten by the world as the man he once was. Over time, the story behind the corpse faded into obscurity. By the 1970s, McCurdy's body had lost its novelty and ended up in a haunted house in California, where it was mistaken for a mannequin. Visitors walked past it, unaware that the ghastly figure dangling from the ceiling wasn't a Halloween prop but the remains of a real man. When forensic investigators examined the body, they discovered a bullet lodged in McCurdy's bones, confirming his identity. The mannequin was identified as Elmer McCurdy, an outlaw who had died over 60 years earlier. Despite being dead for decades, the ghostly presence of Elmer McCurdy seemed to linger. Workers at carnivals and haunted houses where McCurdy's body had been displayed reported strange occurrences. Some claimed to feel an icy chill in rooms where the corpse once rested. Others said they heard the sound of uneven footsteps late at night, as if someone were wandering, searching for something. Witnesses have sworn they saw a shadowy figure lurking in the corners of haunted attractions, its hollow eyes staring as if to ask, "Why won't you let me rest?" Even after McCurdy's remains were finally laid to rest in Oklahoma, his story continued to haunt those who had exploited him. Locals say his restless spirit never truly left. Each Halloween, rumors spread that if you visit haunted houses or traveling carnivals, you should be on guard. Hidden among the plastic skeletons and fake mummies, there may still be something real, a soul that was denied peace for far too long. And if you hear slow, shuffling footsteps behind you, remember, not every mummy is just for show. Story number 5. Rebecca Cade, 2015, in Ohio. Cade's body hanging on a fence was thought to be a Halloween decoration. On a chilly October morning in 2015, the small town of Chillicothe, Ohio, awoke under the crisp air of autumn. The streets were decorated with pumpkins, eerie scarecrows, and fake cobwebs in preparation for the fast-approaching Halloween festivities. Amid this festive atmosphere, a disturbing sight appeared along the road leading to an abandoned lot. Caught in the razor-sharp wires of a chain-link fence, a figure dangled motionless, its arms stretched outward, as if reaching for help. Passersby glanced at the figure, assuming it to be just another Halloween decoration, a prank, perhaps, to spook those walking by. No one stopped. It looked so realistic that it drew brief chuckles and curious glances from a few onlookers. People carried on with their day, never realizing that the bloodied figure on the fence wasn't a prop. It was Rebecca Cade, 31 years old, lifeless, cold, and trapped in a grim display of human indifference. Rebecca Cade had lived a hard life. She was homeless and well known around town for wandering the streets. Rebecca struggled with mental health issues and fought every day just to survive. On the night before her death, she encountered an attacker. In a desperate attempt to escape, Rebecca ran through dark, desolate areas, doing everything in her power to get away from the predator on her heels. She sprinted through the night, her only goal to find safety. In a final, frantic effort to escape, Rebecca tried to climb over a chain-link fence, but her arms got caught in the razor-sharp wires. The fence's jagged metal cut deep into her skin, leaving her bleeding and weakened. Rebecca fought to free herself, but her strength quickly faded. There, under the cover of night, she died, her body hanging on the fence, her hands outstretched in a silent plea for help. But nobody came. Rebecca's lifeless body remained on the fence as the town awoke the next morning. In the eerie silence of dawn, people continued to pass by. To them, the sight of a broken, bloodied figure on the fence seemed like nothing more than a clever Halloween prank. Hours passed. Children on their way to school glanced at the figure, laughing at what they thought was part of the Halloween festivities. By midday, the lifeless body still hung there, mistaken for a decoration. Finally, a utility worker passing by noticed something off. When he got closer, the faint stench of death hit him, sending chills down his spine. As he reached out to touch the figure, a wave of dread washed over him. This wasn't a mannequin or a prop. It was a corpse. Police were immediately called to the scene. They confirmed that the woman on the fence was Rebecca Cade, brutally murdered and left to die while trying to escape. Her attacker had taken her life, and no one noticed. No one helped. Rebecca's death became a harsh reminder of human indifference, her final hours ignored and overlooked by those around her. Shrouded beneath the veil of a playful holiday, Rebecca's killer was eventually arrested and brought to justice. But the specter of her tragic death continues to haunt the town of Chillicothe. Locals say that every year, as Halloween approaches, Rebecca's spirit returns to the site of her death. Those who pass by the fence at night claim to hear the eerie sound of metal scraping against metal, as if someone were still struggling to climb to safety. Some swear they've seen a bloodied woman standing silently by the fence, her hollow eyes staring into the empty streets. If you stay long enough, they say, you'll hear her whisper softly through the night breeze. Why didn't anyone save me? Those brave enough to linger too long near the fence report feeling an overwhelming chill, as if Rebecca's soul remains trapped between worlds, forever tethered to the place where she took her last breath. Rebecca Cade's story serves as a chilling reminder that not all horrors on Halloween are imaginary. As you walk through streets decorated for the season, remember that the most terrifying things aren't always costumes or props. And if you ever hear the sound of metal scraping in the darkness, walk away quickly, because it may be the desperate echo of a soul that was never saved. Halloween is often seen as a celebration of pranks and the bizarre. But sometimes the line between fun and tragedy becomes frighteningly thin. The deaths of Rebecca Cade, Patricia Ward, Robert Owens, the unidentified woman in Delaware, and Elmer McCurdy are painful reminders of that reality. Each of these individuals became invisible ghosts, forgotten amidst human indifference, only noticed when it was too late. These stories remind us that not everything frightening on Halloween is fake. And not everything you encounter is just a harmless prank. Stay vigilant and pay closer attention to the world around you, because sometimes, a fleeting glance could save someone's life. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss any more chilling stories. And remember, horror doesn't always end when Halloween is over.